what you can't explain. It's coming back again. I can see it now, I can see it now. What you can't explain, coming back again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. The case we're talking about today has been highly requested and I've been following it, and it's been on my mind since it happened a year ago. I've been checking for all the updates and we are going to talk about it today in as much detail as possible with as much as we know to this point. In Tucson, Arizona, on July 9th, 2024, temperatures hit a record high of 111 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is the kind of scorching heat that will turn a parked car into an oven in a matter of minutes. In fact, according to the science, it would only take about 20 minutes for that car to heat up to 140 degrees and 40 minutes for the temperature inside the car to reach 150 degrees. And on this day, July 9th, there was a parked car sitting in a driveway in the Tucson suburb of Marana, and that car was parked in direct sunlight. Inside, a 2-year-old girl named Parker was left alone for hours. Her father, Christopher Scholtes, claimed that the little girl was napping. She was asleep, and he didn't want to wake her. He went inside the house, which was air conditioned. He texted with his wife about Christmas plans. He did some internet browsing, and for nearly 2 hours, no one checked on Parker. When Parker's mother came home, Parker was unresponsive. And when cases like this happen, as they do far too often, we initially hold back our judgment. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe Christopher Scholtes and parents like him genuinely forget about their children. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was overwhelmed. It is very difficult to point an accusatory finger at a parent that has just lost their child, and in such a terrible way. But in this case, it appears that what happened to Parker was not just a tragic mistake. It seems to have been part of a pattern of neglect, of reckless behavior, and of warnings ignored. Christopher Scholtes has a past that is littered with red flags, disturbing texts, and other desperate children left alone in cars time and time again. And now, one of them, Parker, is gone forever. So today we're pulling back the curtain on the case of Christopher Scholtes, a man once described as a wonderful father by some, but whose own children have a very different story to tell. From the surveillance footage to the damning text messages to a haunting statement made by Christopher's estranged teenage daughter, the truth of what really happened that day is far more disturbing than it initially appears. Now, Derek and I actually talked about this case on Crime Weekly News when it first happened back in the summer of 2024, and at that time, we were both unsure of what exactly had happened. All the facts weren't out, but both of us did feel that there was more to the story and that it didn't sound right. Now, we have more information. And with this information, I can safely say none of it looks good for Christopher Scholtes. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Saily. Today's video is sponsored by Saily, my new favorite travel hack. And if you've ever landed in a new country with 3% battery, 0 service, and no clue how to find your Airbnb, you're going to want to hear this. I cannot tell you how many times I've been stuck at some unfamiliar airport, phone on one bar, no Wi-Fi, roaming fees kicking in like I just took out a payday loan. But then I found Saily and it completely changed the way I travel. Saily is an eSIM app, which means no more fumbling for physical SIM cards or standing in sketchy lines at the airport. You just download the app, pick your destination and plan, and boom, you're online. I used it on my last trip. It was a research trip. And the moment I landed, I could pull up maps, message my team, even order coffee before leaving the terminal, all you have to do is download the Saley app, choose the country you're headed to, pick the 5 GB plan, and use my exclusive code stephanieharlowe at checkout to get 15% off. You can also just scan the QR code on screen right now. I'll leave it up for you for a bit so you don't miss it. And what I love is that once your eSIM is installed, it works in multiple countries. So if you're hopping around Europe or bouncing between states, there's no need to switch plans every time you cross a border. You stay connected, period. Saley also alerts you when your data is low. They have 24/7 chat support, which is really, really handy. It comes in clutch. And they offer a full refund if your device isn't compatible, which is a huge relief if tech isn't your thing. And I feel personally called out because tech is not my thing. So whether you're researching a case, traveling for work, or just tired of getting hit with those insane roaming charges, do yourself a favor right now. Download the Saley app, scan the QR code on screen, and use code stephanieharlowe to get 15% off your first data plan. Trust me, once you try Saley, you will never travel the same way again. And I mean that because it's going to be so much easier, so much less stressful, and just so much more convenient to remain connected and not have to figure out how you're going to get your cell phone to work if you're in a different country. Saley is awesome. Check them out. Link in the description box. Scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you so much to Saley for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. So to start off this video, I'm going to tell you what I know about 37-year-old Christopher Scholtes, his family, and their dynamic, how things were with them before this tragedy happened. And honestly, it's not much. We really don't know a lot about this family before this happened, but we do know a few things that I think are important. Now, I don't have concrete proof of this, but I do believe that it appears at the time this happened, Christopher Scholtes was unemployed and acting as a stay-at-home father while his wife, 35-year-old Erica Scholtes, worked as an anesthesiologist at nearby Banner University Medical Center. Aside from 2-year-old Parker, the couple also had 2 older daughters aged 5 and 9. Even with only one adult in the home seemingly employed, the family seemed to be doing well financially. They lived on West Peyton's Court in Marana, Arizona, and this area seems to be well off. The area has a lot of large, well-appointed homes that cost anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000. The family was also known to take vacations often. Sometimes it would be Christopher, Erica, and the kids, and sometimes just Christopher and Erica. Last February, the family went skiing in Banff, which is in Canada. The following March, they took a family vacation to Cancun. Christopher and Erica traveled through Europe last June. They went to Seattle in October of 2023 and to Sedona, Arizona in June of 2023. So it seems like they travel a lot. Erica, as the main breadwinner and the person who has, a high stress, high income job, she was probably thinking work hard, play hard, take vacations, do family time anytime you can, when and if you can. And this makes sense because according to the internet, anesthesiologists in the Tucson area make roughly $425,000 a year. And, with the cost of childcare, it was probably decided that money would be saved having Christopher stay home and look after the children while Erica worked. Now, he may have had a part-time job. He may have had a seasonal job. He may have had like a work-from-home job. I can't find evidence of that anywhere. I really don't believe that he did, but he could have, or he could have been recently employed and, this him being home with the kids thing was pretty new. I'm not sure. Now, on the day in question, July 9th, 2024, it appears that Christopher and Erica's 2 older daughters were not home. They were with a neighbor at a trampoline park. And so Christopher Scholtes was left alone with his youngest child, 2-year-old Parker. Now, he claims that earlier in the day, he and Parker left the home and they drove into town because he said he'd been trying to make a doctor's appointment over the phone. I believe it was a doctor's appointment for him, but he was having trouble reaching anyone at the doctor's office. So he made the decision to put Parker in the car, drive over to the doctor's office, and make the appointment in person. At this time, it hasn't been revealed whether this portion of Christopher's story has checked out, because so many other parts of his story have not checked out. but I'm obviously sure the police have looked into it. And when I say that, I mean they most likely checked his phone records to see if he actually attempted to call the doctor's office that day. And they've most likely questioned staff at the doctor's office to see if Scholtes really did drive into the office that day and make an appointment. Now, what happened next in the timeline of that day was not initially revealed. We did not know this when everything was unfolding last July. But it is certainly shocking and adds context to the events of the rest of the day. Between 12:07 and 12:10 p.m., Christopher Scholtes was at a convenience store on West Twin Peaks Road. Surveillance footage shows him going inside the store alone, which means he left 2-year-old Parker in the car by herself. It then shows him walking to the beer cooler of the store. He grabbed 3 cans of beer, and then he entered the store's restroom, where he remained for a few minutes before walking out with less beer than he'd gone into the bathroom with. And then he exited the store without paying for any of the beer. Now, in the articles I've read about this, they always say this. It's unknown if Scholtes consumed any alcohol while he was in the bathroom. But based on context clues, I would assume that he did, right? Why would he take 3 cans of beer out of the cooler, go in the bathroom, stay in there for a few minutes, come out with less beer that he didn't even end up paying for, even though he has money? It's absolutely ludicrous. Just a pattern of reckless behavior and stupid decisions is what we're going to see from Christopher Scholtes. So yes, I believe it is very, very likely, probable, 100% happened that he drank beer while he was in that bathroom, and then he got in the car with his 2-year-old daughter and drove after consuming alcohol. So then between 12:40 and 12:47 p.m., Christopher Scholtes was at a grocery store on North Thornydale Road. This is actually pretty close to his house at this point. Once again, surveillance shows him entering the store alone, leaving Parker in the car alone again, and Christopher would eventually go through self-checkout, where he would purchase 2 jars of salsa, tortillas, tortilla chips, and iceberg lettuce. After this, between 12:40 and 12:47 p.m., Christopher Scholtes was at a grocery store on North Thornydale Road. Once again, surveillance shows Christopher entering the store alone, leaving Parker in the car alone again, and he would eventually go through the self-checkout to purchase 2 jars of salsa, tortillas, tortilla chips, and iceberg lettuce. But once again, the store security camera showed Scholtes shoplifting at least 2 more cans of beer. So if Christopher Scholtes can go through the self-checkout and buy, food items, but he's not paying for the beer, using context clues, kind of just trying to figure this out and speculate, why do you think that might be? Because it's not that he doesn't have enough money for the beer. I believe it's because he didn't want someone, most likely his wife, to notice on the credit card statement that he had purchased beer, right? Because often these stores will have the ability to look at the receipt and see what you bought if you have online banking and things like that. And I do believe, based on what we're going to talk about, that his wife knew he had a drinking problem and she had been on him to stop drinking. And so he didn't want to have any evidence. He didn't want to have a paper trail that he was purchasing and drinking beer that day. So his solution was to shoplift it and drink it while his 2-year-old daughter was in the car. If he'd been caught shoplifting, the police would have been called, and then the police would have been like, oh, hey, you're doing this with your 2-year-old daughter in the car, and then CPS would have been called, and then Parker may have been taken away from Christopher and Erica Scholtes, which at this point, I believe would have been the best case scenario. Much better than what ended up happening. So Christopher Scholtes and his daughter Parker would eventually return home. We're going to talk about the details of that return in a moment. And at 4:08 p.m., Erica Scholtes pulled into the driveway, getting home from work. So at 4:15 p.m., a 911 call was placed from the Scholtes home.
What is the location of your...
911, please.
What's the address? What's going on?
My baby was in the car. She's not responsive.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to transfer you to medical dispatch. Just stay on the line.
Oh my God.
What are you reporting?
She was in the car sleeping. She's unresponsive.
Okay. And who is she?
Please.
Who
My
is
daughter. My daughter.
she? And this was out in the driveway?
Yes.
Is she still breathing?
No, she's not breathing right now.
Okay, we need to start CPR right now.
Yes, we are. We're starting CPR, yes.
The help is on the way to you. I need to hear CPR. I need them to count it out for me. 1, 2, 3,
1, 2,
4.
3. But my wife's a doctor. She's home.
Okay.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. No. Come on, baby. Okay, well, she's coughing.
That's me compressing.
Oh, that's compressing. Oh, my God, baby.
CPR is still going on.
Yeah, CPR is still going on.
Okay. You're going to perform that until the units arrive and take over for you.
Baby. 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 Oh.
In this 911 call, you can hear both Christopher and Erica performing CPR on baby Parker, and Erica was still doing this when first responders arrived at 4:22 p.m. Parker would eventually be rushed to the hospital, the very same hospital her mother worked at, and Parker would sadly be pronounced dead. An autopsy would later show that 2-year-old Parker had died from environmental heat exposure after being found inside a hot car with a measured temperature of 109.9 degrees. Erica Scholtes would ride to the hospital with her daughter in the ambulance while her husband Christopher remained behind to be questioned by detectives. And we have body cam footage of police arriving to the Scholtes home that day. And I'm going to play you some clips from the police officers' body cams, and we're going to discuss what we're seeing and hearing. Some of the video you're going to see is blurred. For instance, the first clip I'm going to play you is blurred because at the time that the video was taken, paramedics were still there working on baby Parker. But we do hear and see things that are very important in this clip.
The car's been on. She was left in the car half an hour, 45 minutes, but it was said it was on. Was the air conditioning on? Yes.
But I guess it turned off, right?
Is it out front here? Yes.
Okay, so you can hear several men talking in this clip, and the men talking appear to be two law enforcement officials and or first responders, as well as Christopher Scholtes. And you can hear someone saying, half hour, 45 minutes, the car's been on. Then you can hear someone ask if the AC was on, and you can then hear who I believe is Christopher Scholtes responding yes. Then you hear a female voice saying, but I guess it turned off, right? And then someone who once again I believe is Christopher Scholtes reply again, yes. Now this is important because they are discussing how long Parker was outside in the hot car alone for. Now at this point, the police are going to try to pull Christopher Scholtes into a different room and just ask him some basic questions and sort of get him to calm down and stop hovering over the first responders who are, doing CPR and trying to revive his child. And the questions start off pretty easy, like, what is your name? And it's clear to see that Christopher Scholtes seems very, very distressed at this time.
You have a wallet on you?
A wallet?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Or we got. You can say in here. Watch out. What's your first name?
Chris.
Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Christopher?
Yes. Please, baby. Please, baby. Please.
So yeah, obviously he is very upset. He's very stressed out. What he's doing and how he's behaving sort of makes sense. But then Christopher Scholtes gets a bit defensive. And the defensiveness is going to continue on, and it's going to continue to increase. He is once again pulled away from the paramedics who are trying to do their job, save his daughter's life, and he's asked to sort of like go into a separate room and answer some questions. And he asks the police officer, what's going on? Why are you with me? And then he's sitting down, he's getting up, he's pacing, he's looking over at the paramedics working on Parker, he's asking questions about what's going on with Parker, about her condition. That's what you're gonna see in this next clip.
Chris. Why don't you have a seat somewhere, Rebecca?
What's going on? Why are you with me?
Because we were first responders and we were on scene. And they call us. Anything like this happens, they call us. Because they know what we're out and about.
Anything?
Just go ahead and pick them work. Let them work.
Now, I remember when this happened in the summer of 2024 and the initial body cam footage was first released. Derek and I watched it. We talked about it on Crime Weekly News. And even before I knew what I know now about Christopher Scholtes, I thought that his anxiety and distress was more related to him realizing he was going to be in big trouble for this and less out of concern for his daughter. And even Derek agreed with me at that time, and that rarely happens. And the reason we felt this way is because Christopher Scholtes is not only defensive, but he seems downright angry that the police are even there, and he starts saying things to defend himself before he's even being asked any questions. At this point, like I said, paramedics are working on Parker. Christopher's not being asked any questions about what happened, where was she, what's your alibi, what's your timeline, what's your story. He's not being asked anything right now, but he's preemptively saying things to sort of set the narrative and make the situation look better than it actually is.
The AC was on.
What car was
Are
it?
you guys all here for me? My MDX,
The one parked
in the
outside?
driveway.
The black one? Okay.
the blue.
Or blue.
Are you guys here for me?
We're
Yeah, we want to do everything we can and all that. That's why you have so many of us.
This is my worst nightmare.
So Scholtes comes right out and he says the AC was on. And he kind of says this angrily, like, I don't even know how this happened. The AC was on. He then asks the police if they are there for him. So once again, less concerned about Parker's condition and more concerned about whether or not he's in trouble. He then tells the police that he needs to move, right? He can't be sitting down. And he starts pacing around this music room, yelling into the sky, please, baby, please. In what I believe to be an act of showcasing some sort of emotion he believes he should be showing. That's just my opinion, okay? Maybe I'm being judgmental, but when you know what I know about this guy, you would be too. Once again, even though Christopher Scholtes has been asked multiple times to let the paramedics work, he keeps making his way over to them, hovering over them, begging them for information, and he keeps saying anything, which I take to mean that he's asking if there's any signs of life, if there's some chance that Parker is alive and he won't have to go to prison.
I have sciatica pain, so I can't be sitting down.
okay.
Please, baby, please. Anything.
Just let them focus. You want to step outside?
No.
Hey, Chris.
Chris is inside. I think Paul is inside.
Anything. Anything.
So this may be mean and it's probably not relevant, but my brain cannot help the connections that it makes. And when I hear Christopher Scholtes in the way he's crying, and once again, I believe he's crying for himself. Once again, I believe his crying is coming out of fear and anxiety for his imminent arrest and less about actually being sad about what's going on with Parker. But the cry sounds exactly like J.P. Miller. Remember that video that we saw where J.P. Miller went to his ex-wife's house and laid in her yard and he was on drugs or something and the police came and he was like crying like Kermit the Frog in the yard and rolling around. That's exactly what it reminds me of. That's what it sounds like. These two sounds will forever be connected and married together in my head.
Switch my medication. Makes me go crazy.
Is somebody helping you?
I think Mark's coming to get me.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was going to see Jesus.
Okay. But you got Mark coming?
Somebody called him, I think.
All All right, so once the paramedics have gotten Parker into the ambulance along with her mother, Erica, the police attempt to talk to and calm down an increasingly emotionally unregulated man. Over the next series of clips, you will see Christopher Scholtes swing from crying and devastated to calm and logical to angry and defensive.
Yeah, they're going to Banner right now. We're going to keep you updated with everything, okay? We just need to stand by with you right now, all right? Is that your wife out there? Yes. Okay. We're going to make sure she gets down there okay. All right. We have officers escorting her down there. If we need to, we will drive her down there and we'll make the same accommodations for you. All right. We'll keep you updated with everything they have. Can we get you anything? Yeah. Okay.
She wants me to try and get her right to the hospital.
Hey, we'll accommodate that for you, all right?
You can see in this clip, Christopher Scholtes is pacing around, fixing chairs, getting himself some water, and texting. As it turns out, he was texting with his wife, Erica, who was sending him some messages from the ambulance that was rushing her unresponsive child to the hospital. Those texts, which have since become public, are damning for Christopher Scholtes and, dare I say, for his wife, Erica, as well. Erica texted Christopher, quote, "I told you to stop leaving them in the car. How many times have I told you?" End quote. Christopher wrote back, quote, "Babe, I'm sorry." End quote. Erica replied back, quote, "We've lost her. She was perfect." End quote. And Christopher texted back, quote, "Babe, our family, how could I do this? I killed our baby. This can't be real." End quote. So yeah. Pretty bad texts. I mean, obviously, at this point, Erica, as a doctor, realizes that her child is gone, that there is no chance of reviving her. And obviously, at this point, Christopher realizes, this is my fault. I did this. This is totally my fault. So at this point, police are now going to question Christopher Scholtes about the timeline and what happened that day. And as he answers, I'm going to point out his lies.
We're just going to need to get a statement from you about what happened, what's been going on. Obviously, I know this isn't easy for you, okay? It's not easy for anyone around right now. We're going to keep you updated with everything we hear. Do you want to sit down somewhere? Where would you be most comfortable?
Sure. Like,
You want me to refill this for you? That's it. Is that all right? I'm just going to start by getting some of your information, your life's information, all right? Okay.
We've just been hanging out at home. Like, she was sleeping in the car, and I have the car on. But it has a sensor where every 30 minutes or so it'll turn off if you haven't moved. I swore she was in the house playing with her sisters like she always does. Just been right now. I haven't been doing anything else really around the house. Then
What time?
we never do this anywhere, but I'm home, right? Like you're home, you're safe, you're like your kids are home.
All right. Well, I'm sorry this is all going on.
We always park that car in the garage usually, but I just got a Peloton recently, and the Peloton is in the garage now, so that's why it's not even in the garage. But
So you can hear Scholtes say that his daughter Parker was sleeping in the car and he had the car on with the AC going. But then you can also hear him say that the car has a sensor where it turns off every 30 minutes or so. Now, the vehicle in question was his 2023 Acura MDX, which does have an automatic shutoff feature where if the engine is left running, it will shut off within 30 minutes. Christopher Scholtes, in this body cam footage, is acknowledging that he's aware of this feature. That's important. That's important for what we're doing right now, telling the story. That's going to also be important when he goes to trial. Christopher then follows this up by saying he swore that Parker was in the house playing with her sisters, like she always does. Scholtes also mentioned that they usually park the car in the garage, but he had just gotten a Peloton, so there was no longer space inside the garage. And not only was Christopher's Acura not parked in the garage on that hot day, but it was parked in direct sunlight with Parker's car seat on the driver's side right in front of a west-facing window. So she's in direct sunlight. The police then asked Scholtes how long was Parker sleeping in the car.
And how long was she sleeping in the car out there?
I want to say it was no more than 30, 45 minutes. And I don't think their air was off that entire time. I think there was a time in between. I had checked on her last. It was still running. She was still sleeping. And then when I went back out, the car was off.
All right, so Christopher Scholtes told the police that Parker could not have been in the car for more than 30 to 45 minutes, and he doesn't believe that the AC was off the whole time because when he went to check on her, the car was still running. But then when he went back out, the car was off. So I believe that Christopher Scholtes is referring to when his wife Erica came home, because according to Erica, when she arrived, she walked in and asked her husband where Parker was. The two of them then ran around the house together searching for Parker, because you definitely would let a 2-year-old roam your house freely for any amount of time. And then Christopher Scholtes realized, oh, I left her in the car. He rushed outside, found Parker in the car, and the car's engine was off. But here's the thing. Law enforcement was obviously going to investigate in order to verify this timeline. And the timeline is that Scholtes claimed he arrived back home with Parker around 2:30 p.m. But when police reviewed surveillance footage from the Scholtes neighbors, they discovered that Christopher had actually arrived home much earlier than that, at 12:53 p.m. So this would have been right after he got the lettuce and the tortillas and stole beer from the grocery store. And this video footage also shows Christopher leaving Parker in the car, entering his home with his 2 oldest daughters, because they had just gotten back from the trampoline park a minute before he pulled in. And then he never returned to that car. So when he said that Parker had only been in the car 30 to 45 minutes tops, that was a lie. By the time that Erica got home, Parker had been in the hot car for 3 hours. And when Scholtes said that the first time he checked on Parker, the engine was still on, that was a lie, because evidence shows that he never went back outside and checked on his daughter, not in all those hours. And he knew that the car and the engine would shut off after half an hour. He knew his car had that feature, which means that for at least 2.5 hours, Parker sat alone in that scorching hot car with no AC and no escape, as she was 2 and strapped into her car seat, completely helpless. Also, remember, the temperature that day reached 111 degrees. 111 degrees. And when Parker was found and taken to the hospital, they would measure the temperature of the car and they put it at 109 degrees, but that was still, around that 5 p.m. time. She was in there since 1 p.m., where the temperature would have been much hotter and it would have lowered as, the day went on and temperatures lower throughout the day. But she was in there when it was probably, could have reached 130, 140, 150 degrees. Who knows? And I'm sure you're wondering, what was Christopher Scholtes doing in his nice, cool, air-conditioned house as his daughter was tortured to death just feet away? Well, I bet you he was drinking that beer that he shoplifted before his wife could get home, right? I bet he was, slamming that. That's just my speculation. I don't have proof of it, but I guarantee you that he put the beer in that grocery bag with the food in it so he could take it in undetected. And yeah, he was probably drinking that beer up before Erica got home. And Christopher's two oldest daughters would later tell police that when they got home with their father, because remember, they arrived home just a minute before he did, he walked in with his two oldest daughters. They said their father was texting with their mother about an upcoming Christmas vacation. And we know from law enforcement investigation that between 2:02 p.m. and 2:30 p.m., Christopher browsed the internet for men's clothing on Nordstrom and looked at pornography. So yeah, that's what he was doing. Most likely drinking beer, shopping for clothes, looking for that perfect polo, that perfect summer polo, and looking at pornography. So the two other daughters, the oldest daughters, also told police in separate interviews that their father would leave them alone in the car on many occasions, and it seemed like he would forget about them in there. So in order to get his attention, they would have to shout loudly. They also said that their father would leave their baby sister Parker in the car often, and when he got inside, he would get distracted by putting his food away and playing video games on his PlayStation. One of the girls told the police that their mother would get angry at her father when he does things he's not supposed to do, such as drinking too much beer. And she said, quote, "He still drinks too much beer and he keeps leaving us in the car when my mom told him to stop doing that. That's how he made my baby sister die." End quote. Both of Parker's sisters told police that if they had known their baby sister was in the car, they would have gotten her out. And just in general, that's devastating because logically, we all know that none of this is the fault of these two young children. They're both under the age of 10. It shouldn't be their responsibility to be like, where's our 2-year-old sister? Like, is she in the car, Dad? Can we get her out? That should not be their responsibility. But obviously, they're going to feel the survivor's guilt and the shame of this for a long time, if not the rest of their lives, because the responsible adult in the house was an overgrown baby bitch boy who was more interested in looking at boobs and playing video games than he was with the well-being of his children. So the questioning of Christopher Scholtes continued, and the police were being super kind and patient with him. Way more kind and patient than I would have been, even as his behavior grew increasingly erratic and aggressive. The police officer kept telling Scholtes how sorry he was and how they were going to make sure he got to the hospital so that Christopher could be with Parker and Erica. And then at some point, Christopher decided he was going to get up from this questioning and go into the master bathroom to take a shower. And of course, the police had to follow him in there. And then they had to let him know that taking a shower at this point was not an option because at this time, the police don't know what they're dealing with. It could have been a tragic accident, or there could be foul play at hand. So they're going to have to treat the situation as potentially suspicious until they have more information. This is what police are supposed to do. You can come in and the people can be telling you it's an accident. The crime scene can look even like it's an accident, but you do not know until, the forensics people show up, until the detectives investigate, until alibis are verified. You don't know what you're dealing with. So this is exactly what police are supposed to do, and I'm glad they did. At that point, the police don't even know how Parker died. They don't know if her father's alibi is solid. They could get something from the medical examiner that showed she'd been shaken and not, left in a hot car. They don't know. So obviously they cannot let him shower because he could be washing off possible evidence. Christopher Scholtes was not happy about any of this, and I want you to watch his demeanor and listen to the change in his voice when he's told that the police officers have to stay with him. He suddenly doesn't sound upset or sad anymore. He sounds combative and entitled, and he just seems like, how dare you? Kind of, how dare you tell me what I can't do? And then they tell him that, any death needs to be treated like a crime scene. And then he goes from being sort of like entitled and like aggressive to crying again. Why is this his reaction? Because as I said, it's my belief that he wasn't necessarily devastated about what had happened to his daughter. He was stressed to the max that he was going to get caught. He was worried that the police and everyone else would find out exactly what happened and exactly how neglectful he had been. And that's why he told the police 30 to 45 minutes tops she was in the car. That's it, 34, even though it was 3 hours. He knew that what he had done was wrong, so he lied. Lying to the police in a questioning situation like this is basically an admission of guilt. You're saying, I know what I did was wrong, and so that's why I'm lying about it. Because if I didn't think what I had done was wrong, if I felt like there was no problem with it, why would I lie about it? Even if I'm telling the truth and the truth still looks bad, I'm not going to lie about it because I don't realize that it looks bad. Let's see what he has to say.
I don't want to feel like we're intruding, but we're going to have to stand by with you for a while. All right.
Is there a reason why?
So any death, we have to treat like a crime scene. I know this is extremely difficult for you. This is a normal process that you have to follow through with. I don't want you to be blindsided by anything, but that's what's going to be going on for right now, okay?
So I'm being treated like a murderer?
No.
I just lost my...
Not at all. I know that. And I know this isn't easy for you. That's why I'm trying to be straightforward and honest with you, okay? I don't want to keep any secrets. I don't want to hide anything for you. Someone's going to talk to you about what happened, man. All right? We will keep you updated with everything.
Yeah, this guy pisses me off. Am I being treated like a murderer? I just lost my child. I'm the victim here, not her. How dare you treat me like I'm under suspicion in my own house when I'm acting suspicious as fuck? And I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but it seems like Scholtes doesn't know what to do with his face or body to illustrate these emotions that he wants the police to believe he's experiencing. At times, it looks like he's laughing, almost like, I can't believe this is happening to me. And at times, he looks straight up furious. And I found it very interesting how the police are like, oh, we have to stay here with you. And he like kind of squares up and he's like, you want to tell me why? You want to tell me why? Like, he's kind of like, I don't know, bodying them, like coming at them. Like, yeah, I'm a man. Like, I'm going to lower my voice and you want to tell me why? It's just so stupid. And then immediately they're like, yeah, we have to treat every, situation like this like a crime scene. And then he's like, ah! Immediately he melts down and he's a little child again. It feels to me kind of like he's just trying different sorts of tactics with them. Like, what are they going to respond to? Okay, are they going to respond to me crying and being devastated? Are they going to respond to like a show of masculine force? What are they going to respond to? And I also find it interesting based on, once again, what I'm going to talk with you about in a second, how Christopher Scholtes always appeals to people's empathy, I guess. Like, he wants them to feel bad for him. It feels like Christopher is most comfortable when he's in a position where people around him feel bad for him. So bad, in fact, that they might not try to tell him the ways in which he's wrong, right? They might not try to push things with him on his bad behavior or his issues, his problems, because he is making them feel so guilty for even, logically coming at him in any way. And then he said something to the police that I find very weird and off considering the circumstances.
My whole family, my whole family's gonna be ruined.
He says the whole family's gonna be ruined. And let me know if you agree with me that this statement was odd. I don't know. It's just something in the way he said it, the way he worded it, how he was like walking away as he said it, the way his hands were positioned. He is not focused on the fact that Parker is gone. He's already focused on what happens next. He's focused on the repercussions, what this means for him, what this means for his family. His silent contemplation of the repercussions, such as, I'm in trouble, I'm going to prison. And then also his out loud contemplation of the repercussions, the whole family is going to be ruined. He's not in the moment of still trying to process the fact that his daughter is gone. He seems to already have gone through that processing. He has acknowledged it. He understands it. I mean, he already told Erica, I'm sorry, babe, right? I'm sorry, babe. That fixed it. So now he's focused on what happens next. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family? So at this point, Christopher Scholtes tried to strong-arm the police into letting him take a shower. He's giving really petulant energy here, like, I'm not asking you if I can take a shower. I'm telling you I am. And I'll be damned if anyone is going to tell me what to do in the house that my wife pays for.
We'll be all right. So we can't let you do that right now. We have to stand by with you. Okay? As soon as you can, we will let you know.
You can stay in the room if you want, but we're going to talk.
I know this isn't easy for you, but the quicker we get this done and finish up, the sooner you can be with your wife. All right? We
I'm
need
trying
to
to
stand by
resolve
with
so
you.
I can go to the
No,
hospital
but
and be with my wife.
we're not going to shower or anything right now. You need to stand by with us.
I don't understand why.
Okay, please.
I don't understand why.
I tried explaining that to you. We just need to stand by
I'm
with you.
standing by. Why can't I take
I
a
know.
shower while you stand by? What is?
It's not necessary right now. I'm not going to stand here and watch you shower. There'll be time for that, but it's not right now. Okay.
He's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Like, you can stay in here if you want, but I'm going to take a shower. Like, I'm going to drop my drawers right in front of you and you can watch me shower if you want, but I'm going to take a shower. Like, he cannot really wrap his head around the fact that this is not the time. This is not the time to take a shower. Who would even want to at this point? Like, on days when I'm having a hard time, it's very difficult for me to even start the process of what I would need to do to get in the shower, but he wants to shower off right away. So yeah, this guy is a piece of work, but that's just my opinion. Allegedly, don't come for me. He sucks. I almost wonder if he thought, like, are they going to give me a sobriety test at some point and I can't have alcohol in my system, so I'll shower and drink a lot of water, because he kept filling up his water cup when he was being interviewed in the kitchen. And then, sometimes when people are drunk or drinking, they think that taking a shower and like flushing their system out with water will make them become sober more quick. And that's not actually true. Your body has to process it. But he also doesn't seem like the smartest person that's ever walked the earth. So he could have just been trying to do anything at this time to make himself sober up quicker, so that if they did do a sobriety test or they did test his blood alcohol, that it would be lower and he would hopefully be in less trouble. But regardless, he's thinking ahead. He's trying to plan for how to get out of this situation with as little collateral damage as possible. Christopher Scholtes was arrested at his home on July 12th, and he was initially charged with second-degree murder and child abuse. Now, these charges would soon be upgraded to first-degree murder after law enforcement did some investigating, after a grand jury was called. And to clear things up, in Arizona, there does not need to be premeditation in order to charge someone with first-degree murder. Even without premeditation, someone can be charged with first-degree murder if a death occurs during the commission of certain felonies, and one of the felonies that falls under that criteria is child abuse. So as he was being arrested, of course, he can't do anything just normally. He's got to be dramatic and be the victim and everything. So as he's being arrested, Christopher Scholtes fell to the ground. He's crying and he's hyperventilating, and he's being protected by his mother and his wife, Erica.
You can step out real quick, man. All right. So remember how I talked?
Can we do this maybe out here so the kiddos don't have to hear?
Here, one is sleeping and one's next door.
So remember how we talked about the investigation and things that would transpire? Okay. And I told you I'm always gonna tell you guys the truth. There's no secrets here, right? So based off of our investigation at this point, right, we have determined that there's probable cause to go ahead and charge you for what happened. Okay.
He's coming up here, Christopher.
No.
It's okay. It's okay.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
So listen. No. Listen. Okay. This doesn't change. This doesn't change what's going on. Okay. What happens at this point? It's simple. Okay. What happens at this point is you are going to be taken into custody. All right, and you will be booked. And then after you are booked, you have an initial appearance with the judge within the first 24 hours. Okay. After the first 24 hours, right, the judge will determine bond and things like that as far as what happens next. At that point, the case goes to the courts. It'll be between you, it'll be between your attorneys, and it'll be between the county prosecutor. So, again, I can't change the consequences of what happened, all right? But what I'm going to ask of you. Oh, okay.
Could I just have you stand up for me, please?
Come on, Chris. Let's go out here. Can you grab him some shoes, Chris? No, come on, Christopher. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we say bye to her?
So listen to what I'm saying.
I'm not resisting.
I know. I need you to listen. Okay. So we will get you.
Just relax.
And these are the options, okay? The reason I'm here and meeting with you in person, is because I don't want this to be anything more than what it needs to be at its base. Okay?
Let me just tighten them for. Let me double lock them. Don't pull on your hands right now.
Kids, I don't want the kids to see Dad get hauled off. That's gonna be between you and Dad. Okay?
Hold on, you're gonna do it. Here you go. I'm gonna be here. I'll take care of everything. I love you. Refusal is right. Fuck. No heart. No fucking heart at all.
You go.
Yeah, more. Yeah. Do you have any comments or just anything on you that's gonna poke with this water? Okay.
So you can see Erica is rubbing Christopher's back, hugging him, telling him she loves him. He's going to be all right. She's soothing him like he's her little baby. And then Christopher's mother is yelling and cursing at the police, telling them they have no fucking heart. And it's really hard to watch this active, delusional, and enabling behavior from both of these women, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Looking at how Chris is and looking at how he's treated by the people around him, it makes perfect sense. And you might think I'm being hard on Erica. After all, she didn't do anything wrong and she lost her child. But I do have my reasons. So let's talk about Erica Scholtes and her part in this terrible tragedy. You heard the police tell Christopher during that last clip that he was going to be booked and he would have a preliminary hearing within 24 hours, which he did. And during that hearing, his wife Erica was the definition of stand by your man, blindly or otherwise. Erica begged the judge to release her husband and let him come home to wait for his trial there so that they could all mourn together as a family.
Victim representative Erica Scholtes is online. Ma'am, do you want to be heard?
I would like to be heard, please. And Your Honor, is it okay if I do not show myself?
That's fine.
So thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say that no one understands how great of a tragedy this is more than myself, my girls, my remaining 2 daughters, and Christopher. So not only do we have to move forward with grieving for my daughter, but we potentially could be losing their father. So the absolute worst case scenario for our family is if Chris were be away from us. We're already hurting. No one else shares this bond and this trauma like all of us, all 4 of us. I know the significance of the tragedy, and I don't want you to think for a second that I underestimate the impact that it has on our lives, on everyone's lives, or that I'm undermining your concerns about the safety of those in our household. So I'm just asking if you can allow him to come home to us so we can all start the grieving process so that he can bury our daughter with us this upcoming week, and that we can go through this whole process together as a family. And so I understand that there is a concern for a flight risk. I just don't see that as a thing. We live in this home that all of our girls were brought home in. If anything, Chris wants to stay here. He's always been cooperative through this entire process, and we'll ensure that we have continued cooperation. And if there's anything additional that is needed from the courts to ensure our safety, I'm happy to help with those certainties that are needed. He's an amazing father. He's a pillar of our community. He's been a coach for young kids. He's taken them to school every day. He's been the main caregiver. I work many hours, so they're all that he sees. This was a big mistake, and I think that this doesn't represent him. And I just want the girls to see their father so that I don't have to tell them tonight that they're going to endure another loss.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that's all I have to say, Your Honor. Thank you.
In this clip, when Erica was speaking on behalf of her husband, we can hear her not only list off all the attributes of her husband, you know, what a good man and a father he was. He coached his kids' sports teams. He was their main care provider. But you can also hear Erica refer to Parker's death as a quote-unquote big mistake that did not represent her husband, Christopher. We've already read the text that Erica sent from the ambulance on July 9th. I told you to stop leaving them in the car. I told you to stop doing it. Now she's gone. So it's pretty evident that Erica was aware of Christopher's tendency to use his vehicle as a temporary, long-term babysitter, or more accurately, a prison for his children, so that he could safely remain in his Peter Pan era, playing video games and having no responsibility, and chugging beer like an eternal frat boy. But it gets worse, because texts exchanged between Erica and Christopher in the months leading up to Parker's death illustrate that Christopher also had issues with drugs, alcohol, and reckless behavior when it came to his children, and Erica was very well aware of this. On March 11th, 2024, Erica texted Christopher, quote, "You haven't shown me you can stop putting the girls in danger or not treat me badly. Even yesterday, you drove home drunk with 2 minors. You drink to excess every time. You can never have just one. I've been asking for 3 years to cut back, and it's actually gotten worse." End quote. So Christopher replied back that he would have to find relief and happiness elsewhere. He said he was going to get better, and he would start getting better that day. Erica also accused her husband of replacing cocaine with alcohol, to which Christopher replied, quote, "At least this one is legal, right?" End quote. So obviously, Christopher Scholtes at one point had an issue with cocaine. And his wife Erica is like, okay, well, you quit cocaine, but you just replace one addiction with another. And him responding to this very clear and intelligent and productive statement with, "At least this one's legal, right?" I feel like this is shitty behavior. This is dismissive, defensive behavior. And it's something we've seen in Christopher Scholtes before, in that body cam footage. He can't have a conversation about something that he feels shame or guilt over because he's emotionally stunted, emotionally immature. He can't admit that he has a problem that is putting himself and his children in danger because that would threaten his already fragile ego and sense of self. So he has to crack some frat boy level joke about it, even though the situation is very grave and there's nothing funny about it. The humor is deflection. And Christopher Scholtes followed this up by saying, quote, "I'm a piece of shit addict and I need to get addicted to healthy things like running again," end quote. I don't think he was addicted to running for that long, but so once again, it sounds like he might be taking accountability here. I'm a piece of shit addict. But no, that's not what's happening at all, because this whole statement is flawed. And he starts it off with this self-deprecation. I'm a piece of shit addict. This is not accountability. This is performative guilt. Stating I'm a piece of shit doesn't actually take responsibility. It invites sympathy or pity. This comes from a place of low self-esteem and can often be heard from someone who's struggled with the persistent belief that they're not good enough. But self-deprecation can also be used as a form of manipulation, and I believe that is how Christopher Scholtes was using it. Comments like, "Oh, I'm the worst," or "I never do anything right," at first glance can kind of sound like, oh, this person knows, that they're messing up here. But no, what's happening is they want the other person to stop criticizing them. They want the other person to stop confronting them. These statements create a dynamic where someone can't be held accountable without the other person feeling like a bully. And I'm sure that Erica loved her husband and was empathetic to his struggles and issues. That's pretty clear, considering she stayed with him, even though it seems like this kind of stuff was happening a lot and it was happening on the long term. What Christopher is doing with this self-deprecating language is putting a person who cares about him in a position where, she doesn't want to kick him when he's down. He isn't having an open and productive conversation about his issues and how to fix them. He's guilt-tripping his wife by shifting the emotional burden onto her, making her feel responsible for his negative emotions, making her feel like he is being hard on himself already. Why should she rub salt in the wounds, right? His following statement saying he should get addicted to healthy things like running, that's also dumb and coming from an unhealthy and unhealed place. An addiction is never a positive thing, and even when shifted to behaviors that seem healthy and productive, like working out or building your career, it's still not healthy. It's known as addiction transference or even cross addiction. So, like while switching from cocaine to gym workouts sounds like a positive shift, the underlying issues still remain unaddressed, and the deeper patterns can still be compulsive, avoidant, and rooted in emotional pain. Addiction is never just about behavior, it's about what the behavior helps you avoid, which is often pain, shame, fear, and worthlessness. If working out becomes an activity done to numb out, to avoid emotional work, or to seek identity through external validation, then it's functionally no different than using drugs. Anything that you do too much or that you become, too dependent on can be a bad thing. External change does not equal internal healing. Okay? That's very, very clear. The science says it. An addiction transfer from one thing to another is no better than the original addiction was. So we have another text exchange between Erica and Christopher dated May 21st, less than 2 months before Parker's death. Erica texted her husband asking him why he was driving 138 miles per hour with their baby in the car and alcohol in his system. And she pointed out that he continues to make shitty decisions. Now, Christopher's response was not mature. It was not immediately apologetic. It did not come from a place of self-awareness or true remorse. It was another cop-out that shifted the conversation from him legitimately doing something wrong and dangerous to Erica being the source of his shame and guilt and responsible for his emotions. Christopher said, quote, "You hate me," and she was sleeping. It's fine, end quote. "You hate me" is not a response to Erica's question. It derailed the conversation by reframing Christopher Scholtes as the victim. And let's add, some minimizing to the list of manipulative tactics that Scholtes used. She was sleeping, it's fine. Because a child can't be harmed in a drunk driving accident if they're sleeping. This is a denial of objective danger. It suggests the baby's vulnerability is irrelevant because she wasn't awake. It doesn't make any damn sense. But when you're a logical person trying to have a normal conversation with someone who is dead set against feeling their shame and adverse in every way to taking accountability, the conversations become so cyclical and exhausting that you don't even know how to respond anymore. You start to feel like you're banging your head into a brick wall, and the person you're trying to communicate with has made a firm decision to consistently and intentionally misunderstand the point. And what we've seen from Christopher Scholtes, it is clear that his normal and usual way of communicating is using deflection, minimization, self-pity, and guilt trips, and avoidance of concrete accountability. He never says, "You're right, that was dangerous. I won't do it again, and here's how I'm going to change." Instead, he plays emotional dodgeball using half confessions and performative guilt to escape real responsibility and change. And he did it with the police too, remember? They're like, "We have to stay with you." They're following him to his bedroom. They're like, "We have to stay with you. We just have to stay by your side." And he's like, "Do you want to tell me why? Want to explain why?" And they're like, "Yeah, because, could be a crime scene." And he's like, "I just lost my daughter. Am I being treated as a murderer?" So he switches right to "Oh, let me remind these people that my 2-year-old is dead and I'm going through hell, and maybe they'll go easier on me and they won't keep pushing me and treating me like a criminal because it's making me feel bad about myself." And these people want to avoid anything that makes them feel bad about themselves at any cost. So coming back to Erica, I want to point out what I believe has already been made clear just from reading those messages. From her text messages, we can tell that she was well aware her husband had put their children in danger more than once. He had driven with them in the car while he was under the influence of alcohol. He had left them in the car alone multiple times. She knew all of this. She had talked to him about it. And as you heard her saying during the hearing, she worked a lot of hours and her husband was the primary caregiver of their children. So not only did she know that Christopher had participated in this dangerous and reckless behavior with her children, she knew that he was often alone with them, unsupervised for long stretches of time. And I would argue that she knew he was not changing, and maybe that he wasn't capable of changing. Her text literally said, "You haven't shown me that you can stop putting the girls in real danger." She said she'd been asking him for 3 years to cut back on the alcohol to change, but it was only getting worse. This was just 2 months before Parker's death. So for Erica to know all of this, for her to send him that text from the ambulance, which I believe assigned the blame properly on Christopher Scholtes, and then to see her rub his back and comfort him and express her love during his arrest and even go as far as to speak to the judges so that he could get out of jail and return home, I don't understand it, and I have an issue with it. I really do. Not only was Erica Parker's mother, but she was a doctor. And as a doctor, she would have also been a mandated reporter. In Arizona, being a mandated reporter means you are legally required to report any reasonable suspicion that a child is being abused, neglected, or otherwise harmed. This includes not only physical abuse, but neglect and exposure to dangerous situations such as substance abuse or domestic violence in the home. Erica had known for years that her husband had an alcohol problem. He had gotten a DWI 11 years prior, and she was having conversations with him about his issues and how they were putting their children in harm's way. And mandated reporters don't even need to have proof. They just need to have reasonable suspicion, and they're required to report within 72 hours. Not only should Erica have reported this, but she should not have gone to bat for Christopher Scholtes in court. Erica also did tell the judge that the only criminal record her husband had was that DWI, but that turns out to not be true either. In February of 2017, Christopher Scholtes was charged with assault, but this charge was dismissed by the prosecution the following April. It looks like the hearing was vacated in diversion, and in the court system, diversion is an alternative to traditional criminal prosecution that allows a defendant who is often a first-time or low-risk offender to avoid conviction by completing certain requirements. For instance, substance abuse diversion, mental health diversion, domestic violence or anger management diversion, etc. Diversion is supposed to address the underlying cause of the criminal behavior, like alcohol abuse or anger issues, and focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. There was also another case in Maricopa County, but all I can see is the case number and the fact that the case has been sealed. And it wasn't just Erica Scholtes who knew that her husband and his issues were dangerous to their children. Neighbors of the family spoke to law enforcement in the wake of Parker's death, and they were well aware of Christopher's behavior. Apparently, it was even discussed at length in their neighborhood chat groups. Some neighbors claimed they had never even met Erica, and another said that she had decided early on that her children would never be alone with the Scholtes family. Many incidents over time were discussed, including the middle daughter getting out of the house one day and knocking on the door of her neighbor without her father realizing. Another of Scholtes' daughters got out of the house unsupervised, wearing nothing but a diaper, and another was lost one year during Halloween festivities in the neighborhood. One neighbor called the police after finding out about what happened to Parker. And she told law enforcement that she wanted to be sure they knew and understood that this was a pattern of negligence, which could have been 100% avoidable. Investigation documents said that this neighbor stated what had happened to Parker was not a simple oopsie, this never happens kind of thing. Another neighbor stated, quote, "I think because of the history of him being so flippant about his children, and I mean, careless is a really good word. Many of us have said things like, this is devastating and not surprising." End quote. There's also a record of a wellness call made by a woman outside a local pizza restaurant in 2019. She said that she saw children in a car by themselves for an extended period of time, and she said she waited 15 minutes to see if a parent would return to the car before she called the police. When police arrived, they spoke to Christopher Scholtes, the owner of the vehicle that the children were left in. But that's not all. Christopher Scholtes also has an older daughter from a previous relationship, and this daughter was 16 years old in 2024.
Speaking exclusively with News 4 Tucson investigators, Scholtes' oldest daughter is speaking up.
So she believes all of this could have been prevented, she says. We do want to warn you that you might find some of the details in this story disturbing. Our News 4 Tucson's chief investigative reporter, Corson Nylander, has more in tonight's investigation.
Well, it was here on this block that Christopher Scholtes' 2-year-old daughter died inside of the family car as temperatures scorched above 100 degrees. The News 4 Tucson investigators have learned that Scholtes has a 16-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. That daughter tells us she's heartbroken for her half-sister's death, but not the least bit surprised.
It makes plenty of sense. I'm surprised that it didn't happen sooner.
Those are the words of Christopher Scholtes' own daughter from a previous relationship, reacting to the death of her 2-year-old half-sister, Parker, that died after being left in a hot car for hours at Scholtes' Marana home earlier this month.
First time he did it was with me when I was younger than 7.
She is now 16. She doesn't want us using her identity for safety concerns, but tells me she has many memories of being left in a hot car. One time while her father was working, she says she spent several hours inside of the car.
I had to go sit out in the car for 4 to 5 hours, and continuously had to restart the car. I'd only eaten once that day.
She's a type 1 diabetic, so that proved to be dangerous for her. She says her 3 other surviving half-sisters were also constantly left alone inside of the car. Scholtes is facing a charge of second-degree murder for his daughter's death. He got out of jail without having to post bond.
Not even just because of the heat, but so many other things could happen, leaving a child unattended in a vehicle. It's so unsafe.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
The News 4 Tucson investigators called Scholtes. It went straight to voicemail. We left him a message, but never heard back. Scholtes' 16-year-old daughter went through a bitter custody battle between him and her mother, who passed away in May. The News 4 Tucson investigators obtained these documents tied to the case. She says she didn't even know her father until she was 5. And against her wishes, she says Scholtes was able to get custody over her. She spent 4 years with him and his wife, Erica. She described those years as a nightmare.
It genuinely has changed me as a person. I'll never be the same person I was before I moved in at their house.
In 2021, she says she tried to commit suicide
because I didn't want to live with my dad anymore.
Child Protective Services got involved. Ultimately, Scholtes gave up custody of her. She ended up back with her mother until her sudden death. She is now being taken care of by her best friend's mother, named Lindsay.
I'm so happy that I can help her and that she's here and safe, and doesn't have to go through any more of anything. Now it's just the healing process and being able to grieve in a safe space.
For her, there's now a lot of grieving to do. A mother and sister gone. Marana detectives have reached out to her about the case. She says if her father's case ever makes it to trial, she plans to take the stand and testify against him.
If they would have taken away my little sisters when I was taken away, none of this would have happened. I haven't been sleeping. I haven't been eating. All I think about all day is the fact that my dad is walking free right now.
And we reached out to Marana police, which confirmed they did reach out to Scholtes' 16-year-old daughter and interview her. It's still unclear at this point how significant the information she gave them will be for this investigation. This case is still ongoing. We'll keep you updated.
So this was a pattern of behavior, not just recently, but pretty much forever, at least since Christopher Scholtes became a parent. And I wish I could say that this was all, that, this is all the new information I have for you, that this is the end of the bad stuff for today. But no, there's more. The audacity of Christopher and Erica Scholtes continues. As I said, Christopher was initially charged with second-degree murder, but a grand jury later indicted him on first-degree murder, which significantly increased the potential penalty he faces. As we know, a judge allowed Christopher's release without bond during his first court appearance because his wife spoke so eloquently on his behalf, and this judge also said that she saw Christopher as low risk and only wanted to impose restrictions that would ensure he returned for his court dates. Just because someone's released until their trial doesn't mean they're technically free and they can do whatever they want. There's usually restrictions, and there's usually travel restrictions, such as, being ordered to surrender your passport, being ordered to remain in the same state, sometimes even the same county, and needing to request permission from the court if you want to travel outside of these designated boundaries. So in March of this year, Scholtes was offered a plea deal. He was offered the potential to plead guilty to second-degree murder, which carries a sentence of 10 to 25 years in prison. And Christopher Scholtes, in all his lack of self-awareness, he turned this deal down, which means he will now go on trial for first-degree murder, where he faces the possibility of life in prison without the possibility of parole if convicted, okay? So he turned down his plea deal for second-degree murder. He's like, I'm going to take my chances with a jury. I'm going to take my chances at a trial, which I think is ludicrous because what we know, the text messages, the neighbors, the 16-year-old daughter, the testimony or the, statements that were given to police from the 2 older daughters of Christopher and Erica Scholtes, what we already, the drinking, stealing the beer, drinking while you're driving with Parker, lying to the cops about how long she'd been in the car. Come on. What we already know is damning, okay? Based on just that, I would vote guilty. That's probably why I've never been on a jury, but I would vote guilty based just on that. And I guarantee you, I know the police have way more than that, right? They have way more information than that. They have way more statements, way more damning evidence. And he's going to take his chance with a trial, with a jury of his peers who probably have children? This is not a good move for Christopher Scholtes. So we know that Erica and Christopher were avid travelers. Taking vacations seemed to be a big part of their lives. We talked about some of these trips: skiing in Canada, beach vacations to Mexico, a likely very expensive trip to Europe. Well, a few months ago, Christopher Scholtes' legal team requested permission for their client to go on vacation in Maui with his wife Erica and their 2 surviving daughters. Court records show that the lawyers petitioned for a change in Christopher's bail conditions to allow this Hawaiian family vacation between May 1st and May 9th, and the judge approved this request, even though the prosecution obviously vehemently objected. The judge in this case, Kimberly Ortiz, ordered that Scholtes would need to remain in contact with pretrial services and not have unsupervised contact with his children. So this man has actively and consistently neglected all of his children for years. He knowingly put them in danger. His actions directly led to the death of his 2-year-old daughter. And he gets to go hang out on a beach with a frozen drink while his wife rubs his back and tells him she loves him and he's a great dad. Why does no one seem to care about how the actions of this one person have left so many devastated? Why does no one seem to care that Christopher Scholtes behaved recklessly over and over again and he never took any accountability? His own wife doesn't seem to blame him, even though the evidence, I believe 100% shows that his child died due to his neglect and issues with alcohol. Of course, I have pity for Erica and what she's lost. I'm well aware that being with a man like Christopher, a perpetual victim and eternal child, can cloud your judgment and leave you emotionally and mentally drained. I also have questions about whether or not Erica was the victim of domestic abuse. Was she the victim of Christopher's 2017 assault charge? She did say in that text that her husband had shown her that he could not stop putting the girls in danger and he could not stop treating her badly. So I'm not discounting that Erica could be going through a lot: enmeshment, codependence. I do believe that her emotional ties to Christopher and his constant deflection and gaslighting and inability to take responsibility for anything, and, basically like this third child in her house. I do believe that this contributed to Erica giving him chance after chance to prove he could be the man and father that she believed he was. She'd already built so much with him, right? There's a marriage, there's an expensive house, there's 3 children. You've built a life with this person. What are you going to do now? You've got to work with what you have, right? You've got to try and make this work. I understand. But if the rose-colored glasses aren't going to shatter when your child dies due to your husband's refusal to change or put anyone before himself, then when will they? I can look back at her texts, I can look back at her messages, and I can see those as, she's trying to make this work. She's trying to save this marriage, save this family, save this man. She hopes that he can change because he keeps telling her he's going to, right? She hopes he can get better. She hopes that he can become the father that she tells everybody he is. But after Parker died, the support should have ended. At that point, that's when Erica should have been like, you're on your own, dude, okay? You're on your own, kid. You always have been. I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot stand by my man. I can't stand by your side. I lost my child because of you. So the fact that she has continued to support him and stand next to him and try to give him leeway and go on vacation with him, I don't understand it. What would it take for Erica to see that she's propping up a dead weight, and if that there's any justice in this world, her husband will be sitting in prison for the rest of his miserable life? It is time to cut the cord and start focusing on herself and her children, start focusing on healing from this loss and this trauma. It's not the time to continue dying on a hill that has never served her and has only brought her pain and heartbreak and disappointment and exhaustion and sadness and heartbreak and, disassociation and any number of other things. And Erica has announced her intention to testify at Christopher Scholtes' trial, obviously in his defense. So all of this has led to a lot of public pushback. There's currently a petition on change.org asking for Erica's medical license to be revoked. And it states, quote, "In our Arizona community, Dr. Scholtes not only grossly neglected her own children, but continued to support her husband despite his fatal negligence that cost their youngest daughter her life. What's even more disturbing is that Dr. Scholtes has continued to stand by her husband even when there were previous instances of the endangerment of their children. To add salt to the wound, she campaigned for his release and was successful in her efforts. A man guilty of child homicide is now walking free among us with her backing. To allow such a person to hold a medical license sets a dangerous precedent. Therefore, we ask for immediate consideration of the revocation of Dr. Erica Scholtes' medical license by the Arizona Medical Board. We cannot allow such endangerment to the welfare of children go without consequence." End quote. Last time I checked, the petition has 603 signatures, and the comments, they are pretty much consistent with what the main body of the message is. They say that Erica violated her own Hippocratic oath every time she knew her husband drank and drove, whether it was with their children or not. Another comment states, quote, "If we cannot trust an individual to protect the lives of their own kids because they're unwilling to make hard decisions, then why should they be entrusted with life and death decisions for others' families?" End quote. And at this point, I want to know what you guys think. Are we being too hard on Erica? Does she hold some responsibility here? Does she hold no responsibility? Let me know what you think in the comments. And at this time, Christopher Scholtes is scheduled to go on trial this coming October. So I will update you with the new information as it comes. But until then, that's all I have for you. Let me know what you think about this case in the comment section. Make sure you hit the like button if you liked it. Share the video if you think it's worth sharing. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you very, very soon. But until then, stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. Love you so much.